You beg silently for approval and call it humility. That's why you're tolerated, not respected. Approval seekers are prey, useful, disposable, never sovereign. You were trained to believe that seeking approval is a sign of character. You call it humility. You call it respect. You call it emotional intelligence. It is none of those. It is a positioning strategy, and not one you chose consciously. From childhood, you were rewarded for compliance, smiled at when agreeable, corrected when defiant, conditioned to monitor faces, tones, reactions. You learned early that safety came from reading the room and adjusting yourself accordingly. This is not morality. This is adaptation. And adaptation, when overused, becomes submission. You think approval seeking makes you likable, but likability is not respect. Likability is accessibility. It signals, I can be shaped. Respect signals, I do not bend easily. Those who seek approval constantly recalibrate themselves to avoid friction. They soften opinions. They dilute convictions. They pre-apologize for intensity. Every interaction becomes a silent negotiation for acceptance, and the negotiation itself lowers status. Power does not negotiate its existence. When you seek approval, you hand someone else the authority to judge your worth. You place them in the evaluator's seat. You become the applicant. Understand the frame. The one who evaluates holds dominance. The one who performs seeks permission. This is why approval seekers are never truly respected. They are assessed. You may think you are being kind. What you are actually doing is broadcasting dependence. You are signaling that your internal compass is weak enough to require external confirmation. A sovereign man does not crowdsource his value. He may observe, he may listen, he may adapt strategically, but he does not seek validation as emotional oxygen. Approval seeking also fractures identity. You cannot remain stable while constantly adjusting for external applause. Your personality becomes modular, situational, inconsistent, different masks for different rooms, and inconsistency erodes authority. People sense it immediately. They may not articulate it, but they feel the instability. Instability invites testing. Testing invites subtle disrespect, small boundary violations, interruptions, dismissals. You experience it and wonder why. It begins with the hunger to be liked, the hunger to be understood, the hunger to avoid rejection. You mistake rejection for death because your nervous system still operates on tribal logic. In ancient environments, exile meant extinction. Today, it means discomfort, but your body doesn't know the difference. So you bargain. You smile when irritated. You agree when unconvinced. You laugh when unimpressed. Each micro-compromise is a silent admission. Your approval matters more than my truth. And the moment that hierarchy is established, you are placed below. The world does not punish you for being kind. It punishes you for signaling that you cannot withstand disapproval. There is a difference. A man who can tolerate being disliked becomes unpredictable, harder to manipulate, less controllable. He introduces risk into social exchanges. That risk commands space. Approval seekers remove that risk. They telegraph safety. Safety invites casual dominance. This is the illusion of virtue. You were told that being agreeable makes you good, but in power dynamics, excessive agreeability makes you harmless. Harmless men are rarely attacked openly. They are simply bypassed, ignored, overlooked, used when convenient. You think respect is earned by generosity. It is not. Respect is earned by boundaries, and boundaries cannot coexist with constant approval seeking. Because the moment a boundary threatens someone's comfort, your old conditioning activates. You retreat, you soften, you explain. You justify your own limits as if they are inconveniences. That is not virtue. That is self-erasure. The harsh truth: if someone senses you need their approval, they will never fully grant it, not permanently. Approval is most powerful when scarce. If you chase it, you inflate its value and devalue yourself. Machiavellian strategy understands this clearly. Dependence creates leverage. Indifference removes it. Right now, your approval seeking is a leash disguised as morality. You are not respected because you are good. You are tolerated because you are compliant. And until you separate virtue from submission, you will continue mistaking your cage for character. You don't seek approval because you're weak. You seek it because you are programmed to. The mechanism is older than your ambition and deeper than your pride. It operates below language, below intention. It is the psychology of permission, the compulsion to ensure that your existence is acceptable before you fully express it. You hesitate before speaking. You scan faces after making a statement. You soften strong opinions with disclaimers. That pause, that scan, that softening, that is your nervous system asking, "Am I allowed?" Somewhere in your development, approval became currency. Love was conditional. Praise followed performance. Silence followed defiance. Your brain made a strategic decision: secure acceptance first, express self second. This is not morality. This is adaptation. And adaptation, when overused, becomes submission. When you seek approval, you are not merely hoping to be liked. You are outsourcing authority. You are placing another person between your impulse and your action. You are waiting for a green light that was never theirs to give. And every time you do this, you weaken your internal command structure. Think of your psyche as a chain of command. At the top should be your judgment, informed, calibrated, sovereign. Beneath it, emotion. Beneath that, impulse. Approval seeking reverses the hierarchy. External reaction becomes commander. Your judgment becomes subordinate. You begin making decisions not based on what is correct, but on what will be received safely. This is how men become agreeable against their own interests. This is how boundaries dissolve before they are even tested. You believe you are being socially intelligent. What you are actually doing is negotiating from below. There is a biochemical component to this. Approval triggers dopamine. Social validation activates reward circuits designed for tribal cohesion. When someone nods, smiles, affirms, your body relaxes. When they frown, withdraw, disapprove, cortisol spikes. You feel threatened. So you chase the nod. Over time, your brain links validation with safety and disapproval with danger. Now your behavior is no longer guided by principles. It is guided by avoidance of discomfort. This is the leash, and it is subtle. You do not kneel physically. You kneel neurologically. The most dangerous part: you begin anticipating disapproval before it even arrives. You censor yourself preemptively. You cut off intensity before it surfaces. You shrink ideas before they threaten harmony. This is how sovereignty erodes, not through attack, but through self-suppression. A man who constantly seeks permission cannot generate tension, and tension is necessary for respect. Tension signals conviction. It signals that you are willing to hold ground even when friction appears. Without tension, you become absorbable. You blend into the expectations of others. You adapt so efficiently that no one feels resistance around you. You become convenient. Convenient men are rarely feared, rarely admired, rarely followed. The psychology of permission also creates emotional volatility, because when your worth is tied to external response, your mood becomes dependent on others. A compliment elevates you. A criticism destabilizes you. Silence unsettles you. You become reactive. Reactive men are readable. Readable men are controllable. Control is the opposite of power. Consider the deeper implication. If someone knows you need their approval,
They control your emotional climate. They can withdraw praise and watch you recalibrate. They can apply mild disapproval and observe your compliance increase. You are now predictable, and predictability is vulnerability. Sovereign men operate differently. They may consider feedback, they may adjust tactically, but their core identity is not suspended in anticipation of applause. They do not require permission to occupy space. They speak first, observe reaction second. They act from internal command, not external confirmation. This does not make them reckless, it makes them stable. Stability commands gravity. When you stop asking, even silently, "Is this okay?" your posture changes, your tone changes, your pacing changes. You no longer rush to soften. You no longer.
Approval seeking does not look the same on every man. It adapts, it disguises itself, it hides behind personality. But underneath, the mechanism is identical. Fear of exclusion, fear of irrelevance, fear of being dismissed. It manifests in 3 dominant archetypes. You will recognize yourself in at least one. 1. The performer. The performer earns approval through excellence. He is competent, productive, impressive. He sharpens skills not only to win, but to be seen winning. Achievement becomes his language of worth. On the surface, he looks powerful. Underneath, he is dependent. The performer cannot tolerate being average in public. He over-delivers, over-explains, over-proves. Silence feels like invisibility. If praise fades, anxiety rises. His unspoken belief, "If I am exceptional enough, I will be undeniable." But power is not earned through constant demonstration. In fact, the need to demonstrate signals insecurity. The performer subtly communicates, "Please validate that I am valuable." Predators understand this archetype immediately. Withhold recognition, and he will try harder. Question his competence, and he will overextend to defend it. His drive becomes a lever. He believes he is chasing mastery. Often he is chasing applause, and applause is an unstable currency. 2. The pleaser. The pleaser earns approval through accommodation. He is agreeable, easygoing, generous with time and energy. He avoids confrontation. He absorbs tension so others remain comfortable. He calls it being mature. It is conflict aversion disguised as virtue. The pleaser scans constantly for emotional shifts, a sigh, a pause, a cold tone, and he adjusts instantly. He smooths the room. He makes concessions before being asked. His unspoken belief, "If I keep everyone comfortable, they will keep me included." But comfort does not generate respect. It generates utility. The pleaser becomes the emotional janitor of every room, cleaning messes he did not create, apologizing for boundaries he has not enforced. Over time, resentment builds quietly, because he is giving from fear, not strength. And people sense it. They take more. They test more. They assume access. The pleaser believes he is protecting relationships. In reality, he is training others to expect his compliance. 3. The moral martyr. This archetype is the most dangerous because it hides behind righteousness. The moral martyr earns approval through virtue signaling. He positions himself as principled, fair, ethical. He condemns harshness. He distances himself from power games. But his morality is often performative. His unspoken belief, "If I am morally superior, I will be socially protected." He does not seek approval through achievement or accommodation. He seeks it through alignment with dominant narratives. He echoes acceptable opinions. He avoids controversial stances. He mistakes social approval for moral correctness.
The moral martyr fears being seen as selfish, aggressive, or dominant, so he suppresses ambition and labels it integrity. But suppressed ambition does not disappear, it curdles. He criticizes powerful men while secretly envying them. He condemns dominance while resenting his own passivity. His approval comes from appearing safe and good, but appearing good is not the same as being strong. These archetypes are strategies, not identities. Each was formed to secure belonging. The performer secures belonging through competence. The pleaser secures belonging through comfort. The moral martyr secures belonging through virtue. Different masks, same hunger. All three share a fatal flaw. They depend on external reaction to stabilize their self-image. Remove the applause, the gratitude, or the moral validation, and they destabilize. This is why approval seekers are predictable. If you understand what someone needs to feel worthy, you can control them. Withhold praise from the performer. Apply mild disapproval to the pleaser. Challenge the moral martyr's virtue. Watch them scramble. Sovereign men do not scramble. They do not collapse when misunderstood. They do not dissolve when unvalidated. They do not overcompensate when ignored. They remain still. That stillness is unsettling to those who depend on reaction, because it cannot be manipulated easily. Right now, you may believe your archetype is a strength. Perhaps it has earned you opportunities. Perhaps it has built relationships. But ask yourself one question. If all validation disappeared tomorrow, who would you be? If no one clapped, if no one thanked you, if no one affirmed your goodness, would you remain solid, or would you feel erased? The archetype you cling to is the structure you hide behind, and anything you hide behind eventually becomes your cage. Until you dismantle the archetype, you will remain readable, and readable men are manageable. Approval is not just a behavior, it is a scent, and those who operate from dominance, socially, romantically, professionally, detect it instantly. They may not articulate it, they may not even consciously analyze it, but human beings are ancient pattern recognition machines. Micro-hesitations, tone softening, excessive smiling, over-justifying, all of it broadcasts a single message. This man needs something from me. The moment that signal appears, the power dynamic tilts. Predators do not always look like villains. They can be charismatic leaders, romantic partners, high-status colleagues, socially fluid men. They move through environments reading leverage, and approval-seeking is leverage. In every hierarchy, corporate, political, tribal, those who require validation are placed beneath those who do not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence, but because dependency creates pressure points. History makes this clear. Courts were filled with ambitious men competing for royal favor. They flattered, they praised, they aligned publicly, and the monarch controlled them easily, not through constant force, but through selective recognition. Favor granted, favor withheld. Loyalty adjusted accordingly. The king did not need to dominate physically, he simply controlled recognition. That pattern never disappeared, it only modernized. Today, approval comes in subtler forms: praise from authority, attention from women, social validation from strangers. The structure is identical. Whoever controls what you crave controls your behavior. Approval seekers think they are building goodwill. Predators see a dependency loop. Consider social interaction. When you seek approval, your body language shifts. You lean slightly forward. You nod more than necessary. You rush to clarify. These are small signals, but they accumulate. Dominant personalities interpret them as compliance cues. And once someone reads you as compliant, they begin testing. A subtle interruption, a mild dismissal, a boundary push framed as humor. If you absorb it without resistance, the hierarchy locks in. This is how disrespect escalates, not through open attack, but through calibrated testing. Predators do not attack men who radiate indifference. Indifference is expensive to challenge. It offers no emotional reward, no leverage, no visible crack. Approval seekers, however, react, and reaction is fuel. In romantic dynamics, this pattern becomes even more brutal. The man who needs validation from a woman telegraphs it immediately. He overtexts, overinvests, overexplains his intentions. He adjusts his personality to maintain attraction. The more he seeks reassurance, the less desirable he becomes. Not because he is kind, but because he is unstable. Desire is linked to perceived strength. Strength implies independence. If your emotional state depends on someone else's response, you are not independent. You are tethered. And tethered men are rarely chosen long-term by those who value dominance. In professional environments, the pattern is quieter but equally lethal. The approval-seeking employee works late not from ambition, but from fear of disapproval. He volunteers excessively. He agrees publicly, even when skeptical. Superiors notice. They give him responsibility, but not authority. Work, but not influence, because they sense he will not challenge them. He becomes reliable, but never threatening. And in hierarchies, if
You do not defeat approval-seeking with confidence affirmations. You defeat it with indifference. Not emotional numbness, not arrogance, not performative detachment. Strategic indifference. Indifference is the ability to remain internally stable, whether you are praised, criticized, ignored, or misunderstood. It is control over reaction. And control over reaction is control over leverage. Right now, your reactions are predictable. Praise elevates you. Disapproval unsettles you. Silence makes you anxious. This predictability makes you manageable. The discipline of indifference begins with one brutal rule. You do not explain yourself unnecessarily. Approval seekers over-explain because they fear misinterpretation. They rush to clarify tone, intention, context. They believe if they are perfectly understood, they will be accepted. Sovereign men tolerate being misunderstood. They allow ambiguity to sit. When you stop filling silence with justification, the dynamic shifts. The other person must process you without extra reassurance. They must lean forward. That is leverage. Second rule, delay your reaction. When someone challenges you, interrupts you, or subtly tests you, do not respond immediately. Pause. Hold eye contact. Let the tension exist. Most men rush to resolve tension because they are uncomfortable with it. But tension is not danger, it is information. When you do not rush to smooth the moment, you signal that you are not dependent on harmony. That alone increases perceived strength. Third rule, speak declaratively. Approval seekers dilute language. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could be overthinking this. I don't want to sound harsh. These disclaimers are verbal kneeling. Remove them. Say what you mean calmly, without apology. You are not required to pre-soften your existence. Fourth rule, reduce accessibility. Not isolation, selective availability. If you respond instantly to every message, attend every request, and accommodate every schedule, you become abundant. Abundance lowers value. Scarcity raises it. You do not chase, you do not over-pursue, you do not double-text to relieve anxiety. You match investment or you withdraw. This is not manipulation, it is equilibrium. Approval seekers give more than they receive because they fear losing connection. Sovereign men calibrate. Fifth rule, practice controlled disagreement. Most men avoid disagreement because they fear social rupture, but respectful friction builds respect. Disagree calmly, without hostility, without raising volume, without sarcasm. Simply state your position and hold it. When someone realizes you can maintain composure while disagreeing, their perception shifts. You are no longer absorbable. You introduce resistance into the interaction. Resistance signals spine. Spine generates gravity. Understand this clearly. Indifference does not mean you lack emotion. It means you are not governed by the emotional reactions of others. You can appreciate praise without needing it. You can hear criticism without collapsing. You can experience rejection without recalibrating your identity. This stability unsettles those accustomed to control. Many people unconsciously test new men for pliability. They push lightly to see if you bend. If you do not bend, they adjust their pressure. But if you overcorrect, over-explain, or over-accommodate, they recognize softness. The discipline of indifference must also be internal. Notice your impulse to check for validation, the urge to reread messages, the desire to confirm tone, the discomfort of not being responded to immediately. Do not soothe it with action. Sit with it. The hunger weakens when it is not fed. You are breaking a neurological addiction. Approval is a drug. Intermittent validation is the most addictive form. When you remove your own pursuit behavior, your nervous system protests. That protest is withdrawal. Endure it, because on the other side of that discomfort is something most men never experience: freedom. When you no longer need approval, your posture changes naturally. Your pacing slows, your words sharpen, your eye contact steadies. You are no longer asking, "Do you accept me?" You are observing, "Do you qualify for my attention?" That inversion alone transforms dynamics. Indifference is not cruelty, it is sovereignty. It is the quiet message that your emotional climate is self-regulated. And once others realize they cannot manipulate your reactions through praise or withdrawal, they lose leverage. When leverage disappears, respect emerges. Because respect is not given to those who chase connection. It is given to those who can walk away from it. There is no gradual evolution here, no soft transition, no gentle integration. The man who seeks approval cannot coexist with the man who commands respect. One must die. Not physically, psychologically. The approval addict inside you is not harmless. He is strategic but outdated. He was built to survive social fragility. He learned to read moods, anticipate rejection, and shrink before punishment. He kept you safe. But now he keeps you small. As long as he is alive, he will sabotage every attempt at sovereignty. Every time you try to assert yourself, he will whisper, "Tone it down. Don't risk it. What if they leave?" That voice is not wisdom. It is fear conditioned into habit. You do not negotiate with it. You override it. Identity death begins with one brutal acceptance. You will be disliked. Not universally, not constantly, but inevitably. When you stop seeking approval, you remove emotional cushioning from interactions. Some will feel discomfort. Some will feel challenged by your refusal to bend. Let them. If your stability depends on universal acceptance, you are already owned. The approval addict believes rejection equals loss of value. Sovereignty understands rejection equals filtration. Not everyone qualifies for proximity. The addict seeks inclusion. The sovereign selects. This is the shift. You no longer ask, "How do I remain accepted?" You ask, "Who earns continued access?" That question alone changes posture. Identity death also requires behavioral proof, not internal promises, visible change. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing silence. You stop apologizing for boundaries. And you endure the discomfort that follows. Because there will be friction. People accustomed to your compliance will resist the change. They may call you distant, arrogant, cold, different. You are different.
You removed their leverage. The approval addict wants to repair that tension immediately, to reassure them, to say, "I'm still the same." You are not the same. You are no longer manageable. This stage feels isolating at first, because when you stop performing for approval, the shallow connections weaken, the conditional relationships thin out. That thinning is not loss. It is purification. The addict panics during this phase. He interprets reduced validation as danger. He urges you to revert, to soften again, to overgive again, to restore comfort. Do not. Stay still. Sovereignty is built in the silence after you refuse to chase. Eventually, something shifts. The people who respect strength recalibrate towards you. They sense stability. They sense groundedness. They sense a man who does not emotionally beg. And the ones who only valued your compliance drift away. This is selection. Nature does not reward universal approval. It rewards dominant stability, the ability to hold form under pressure. You cannot hold form while seeking permission to exist. Killing the approval addict also changes your internal dialogue. Instead of asking, "Did they like that?" you begin asking, "Was that aligned?" Alignment replaces validation. Your compass moves inward. This is the final inversion. Your worth is no longer reaction-based. It is standard-based. You define your standards. You enforce them. You accept the consequences. That acceptance creates gravity. Men without gravity orbit others. Men with gravity are orbited. Understand this clearly. Becoming unapproachable to manipulation does not mean becoming hostile. It means becoming non-needy. Neediness is visible, even when hidden under charm or competence. When it disappears, your energy shifts from seeking to selecting, and selection is power. The approval addict dies quietly. There is no ceremony, no announcement, just repeated decisions to remain composed when ignored, steady when criticized, detached when tested. Over time, the old reflex weakens. You stop scanning faces. You stop calibrating tone for safety. You stop measuring your value through applause. You exist without asking. That is sovereignty. Most men will never make this transition. They will spend decades negotiating their worth through performance, accommodation, and virtue signaling. You now see the mechanism. The question is simple. Will you remain digestible, or will you become indigestible? Because once you no longer see...
Most men will hear this message and nod. They will feel momentarily awakened, slightly offended, briefly empowered. Then they will return to their old patterns by tomorrow morning. Because killing the approval addict is not an intellectual exercise, it is a daily execution. Here is the final warning. If you revert even subtly, the world will sense it. The moment you begin seeking reassurance again, through over-texting, over-explaining, over-performing, the hierarchy recalibrates instantly. Power dynamics are fluid. They update in real time. You do not get grandfathered respect. You maintain it. Selection is ruthless. Every room you enter is unconsciously scanning for stability. Who flinches first? Who laughs too quickly? Who softens their tone when challenged? Who looks around after speaking to measure reaction? Those signals determine placement, and placement determines opportunity. You cannot hide approval-seeking behind intelligence. You cannot mask it with style. You cannot compensate for it with ambition. It leaks, and when it leaks, leverage forms around you. The elite minority understands something uncomfortable. Disapproval is not fatal. In fact, it is filtering. When you state a position calmly and someone withdraws, that is information. When you enforce a boundary and someone resents it, that is clarification. You are not losing value, you are refining proximity. The masses crave comfort, they chase applause, they fear friction, they would rather be liked than respected. That is why they remain manageable. You are not here to be manageable, you are here to be sovereign. But sovereignty demands isolation tolerance. It demands the ability to sit in a room where not everyone agrees with you and remain unmoved. It demands composure when misunderstood. It demands silence when baited. This is advanced social warfare, because most manipulation relies on emotional hooks: guilt, praise, fear of exclusion, fear of conflict. When those hooks find nothing to latch onto, manipulators lose interest. You become expensive to control. Expensive men are approached carefully. Cheap men are used freely. Ask yourself something brutal. When someone withdraws approval, do you feel urgency to fix it? If yes, you are still owned. When someone challenges you publicly, do you rush to justify yourself? If yes, you are still seeking permission. When someone goes silent, do you chase to restore connection? If yes, you are still negotiating from below. This is not about becoming cold for the sake of ego. It is about eliminating leverage against you. There will be moments where the old hunger resurfaces: a delayed response, a withheld compliment, a subtle shift in tone. Your nervous system will whisper, "Repair it." That is the final test. Stay still. Let the silence breathe. Let the tension sit. Let them reveal themselves. Because when you stop seeking approval, something else becomes visible. Who values you without performance? Who respects you without compliance? Who remains when you are not entertaining them? This is selection. You are no longer trying to win every interaction. You are evaluating them. And the difference between those two positions is power. The world does not need more agreeable men. It needs fewer dependent ones. You now understand the mechanism. You have seen the archetypes. You have felt the threat. The only question remaining is whether you will act, not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. Sovereignty is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek applause. It does not explain its standards. It enforces them. From this point forward, every interaction becomes a test, not of them, of you. Will you revert to comfort, or will you hold the line? Because once you stop seeking approval, something irreversible happens. You become difficult to replace, and men who are difficult to replace are rarely disrespected.